silence, then the sound of digging, not the neat, purposeful digging of a farmer turning soil. This is the digging of men who are building a shape they plan to survive inside. Thousands of shovels biting at once, dirt sliding, picks striking stone with that dull metallic clink that carries farther than it should. You can smell it before you can see it. Churned earth, sweat, damp leather, smoke from cooking fires that never fully leave the air. Late summer, 52 BC Gaul. You're standing near a hilltop fortress called Alesia. From far away, it looks like safety. High ground, steep slopes, rivers and valleys cutting the land into natural armor. The kind of place you choose when you're out of options, but still too proud to admit it. Inside those walls are tens of thousands of Gauls, fighters, families, animals, supplies that are already being counted in whispers. And inside those walls is the one name that matters more than the height of the defenses, more than the granaries, more than the rivers. Vercingetorix. He isn't a myth yet. He's a living man who did the one thing Rome fears more than swords. He made Gaul act like one body. He told tribes that hated each other to cooperate. He told proud leaders to swallow grudges. He told farmers to burn their own fields, not because he loved pain, because he understood Rome. And down below those walls, spread across the hills like a controlled infection, is the man Gaul has been trying to escape for 7 years. Gaius Julius Caesar. He doesn't look like a monster. Monsters are easy. Monsters are simple. Caesar looks like an officer, practical, clean, controlled, a politician wearing a general's skin. The kind of calm that only exists in men who have rehearsed disaster in their head and decided what they'll do when it arrives. He has around 50,000 men, legionaries, cavalry, auxiliaries, enough to take towns, enough to win battles, enough to make senators back in Rome stare at maps like the maps are warning letters. But Alesia is different, because Caesar didn't come here to fight one army. He came here to fight two, one trapped inside the walls and one gathering outside. And here's what nobody tells you when they summarize Alesia like it's just a siege. This battle is decided before the first sword swing, not because Caesar has magic, not because Gaul is weak, not because the gods pick winners. It's decided because Caesar understands something simple and brutal about panic. When people are desperate, they look for the most obvious door. And Caesar is about to build a world where every obvious door becomes a trap. Quick word before we go down into the trenches. If you like stories where history stops feeling like a textbook and starts feeling like you're standing there, where one decision turns into a warning that echoes for centuries, subscribe. It helps us keep digging up these moments the way they actually felt. All right, back to Gaul, back to Alesia, back to that sound of shovels hitting earth like a heartbeat. Because Caesar's men aren't digging for comfort, they're digging for control. To understand why Alesia happens, you have to understand what this war is. Rome calls it a campaign. Caesar calls it duty. Gaul experiences it as a slow-motion disaster. For years, Caesar has been moving through this land like a machine that eats resistance and turns it into hostages, taxes, and Roman prestige. Every season brings another fortified town, another example made out of someone else's future. And Caesar isn't doing it as a charity project. He's doing it because Rome is a republic that pretends it's about principles, but runs on ambition. Caesar isn't just fighting Gauls. He's fighting the political knives back home. Every victory is a shield. Every defeat is an opening. For a long time, the Gauls can't stop him because they keep doing what people do when they're cornered. They fight alone. One tribe rises. Caesar crushes it. Another tribe rebels. Caesar makes a public lesson of it. Rome's strength isn't just training. It's that Rome can focus violence with discipline, and discipline beats scattered courage over and over. Then Vercingetorix changes the rules. He learns fast. He learns that Rome's strength isn't just swords, it's supply. Rome is a beast that eats grain, water, and certainty. Take away the food, the beast slows. Take away the certainty, the beast hesitates. So he orders a scorched earth strategy. Burn the crops, empty the storehouses, evacuate villages. Leave nothing for the Romans to steal or eat. It's the kind of decision that makes your own people hate you in the short term, so they can live in the long term. For Caesar, it's infuriating. A war without spoils is a war that drains you. It forces your army to march farther. It makes your scouts earn every meal. It turns routine into exhaustion. And then Caesar loses at Gergovia, an ugly moment that breaks the illusion of inevitability. Romans die. Caesar gets outplayed by terrain and timing. For the Gauls, it's oxygen, proof that Caesar can be stopped, proof that Rome is not fate, just another enemy with lungs and blood. The rebellion swells. Caesar does what he always does when the ground starts shifting. He moves fast. He tries to isolate the problem before it becomes a wave that can drown him. He hunts Vercingetorix. He tries to force a decisive moment. Eventually, Vercingetorix makes a choice that will define him. He retreats into Alesia. From the Gaulish point of view, it makes sense. Alesia is strong. It has natural defenses. It's a hilltop fortress with rivers and slopes that punish attackers. If you can hold Alesia long enough for a relief army to arrive, you can crush Caesar between two forces, pin him in place, smash him from outside while you break out from inside. Two hammers, one anvil, Caesar in the middle. It's a good plan. It's also the plan Caesar has been waiting for. Because Caesar is tired of chasing shadows through forests. He's tired of scattered resistance. He wants Gaul in one place. He wants the rebellion concentrated. He wants it visible. He wants it trapped. So when Caesar arrives and sees the hill and the walls and the enemy inside, he doesn't think, "That's too strong." He thinks, "Good." Because a strong fortress convinces your enemy to stay put. And if Vercingetorix stays put, he has to eat. And if he eats, he runs out. This is where Caesar's gamble begins. It's the kind of gamble that looks like genius after it works, and madness if it fails. He decides not to storm Alesia. He builds a cage around it. First, an inner ring of fortifications, a wall facing inward, meant to keep the Gauls from escaping and to keep Roman pressure constant. Trenches, ramparts, palisades, watchtowers, earthworks stacked like layers of intention. This is the circumvallation. Imagine what that feels like inside Alesia. You stand on the walls expecting to see open countryside, space, escape routes, the option to run. Instead, you watch Romans dig and build and measure and place stakes and raise towers calmly, methodically, like they're not improvising, like they knew you would come here. It's not just intimidating, it's insulting. Then Caesar builds the second ring. Because Caesar knows a relief army is coming. Not if, when. So he builds a wall facing outward, another line of trenches, another rampart, another palisade, another set of towers. This is the contravallation. Now step back and picture it. Alesia in the middle, a Roman wall around it, and another Roman wall around that. Caesar has placed his army inside a corridor of death, besieging one enemy while preparing to be besieged by another. Most commanders avoid that scenario. Caesar designs it, and the fortifications aren't just walls. They're a system designed to steal momentum. Multiple trenches, some wide, some deep, some filled with water where the ground allows. Rows of obstacles, sharpened stakes angled outward, hidden pits covered with brush and dirt so charging men fall into the earth like the earth is hungry. Spiked devices scattered in front of the walls, little engineered betrayals meant to catch feet, slow bodies, break rhythm. Everything has one purpose: make an attacker arrive tired, disorganized, and bleeding before he ever touches Roman shields. This is engineering as psychology. Caesar isn't just blocking movement, he's controlling how panic moves. Inside Alesia, time starts to rot. Grain gets counted quietly. Horses get rationed. People stop talking about weeks and start talking about days. The walls stop feeling like protection and start feeling like a lid. Vercingetorix knows waiting will kill him, so he sends cavalry out early, before Caesar's ring tightens completely. Riders who slip past Roman lines and carry the message across Gaul. Come, bring everything. Bring every man who can hold a spear. If we break Caesar here, we break him forever. The message lands. Outside, across Gaul, something huge begins to form. A relief force, a coalition, different tribes, different leaders, old grudges swallowed for one moment by fear and hope. While that army gathers, Caesar keeps building, and building, and building. The Romans turn fatigue into structure, shifts rotate, towers rise, trenches deepen, palisades sharpen. Watchfires dot the ring at night like a necklace of controlled flame. The Gauls inside look out and realize something terrifying. Caesar doesn't need to win fast. He can just wait. Hunger will do the work. Inside Alesia, the pressure turns ugly. At some point, the leaders make a decision that stains the air between the walls forever. They push out the non-combatants, the mouths they can't feed, families, elderly, children, people who didn't choose this strategy but will pay for it anyway. They're forced into the space between Alesia and Caesar's inner wall. They beg, they cry, they crawl. Caesar does not open the gate, not because he's uniquely cruel, because he understands siege math. If he feeds them, he extends the siege. If he lets them through, he weakens his own supplies. His strategy is a closed system. So the space between walls fills with suffering no one wants to claim. And then, the horizon changes. The relief army arrives. From Roman towers, scouts see dust clouds first, then movement. Then the line becomes an army. Horns sound, orders ripple through camps. Men climb ladders to look. Even veteran legionaries feel it in their stomach. This is not a raid. This is an attempt to erase them. For the Gauls inside, the relief force is salvation made visible. You can feel hope turn into noise. Men shout from walls, messengers run. Vercingetorix's eyes don't leave the horizon. For Caesar, it is exactly what he planned for. Now Alesia becomes its true form. A double battle. Rome in the middle. Two enemies pressing from two directions. And this is where we go cinematic, because the final assault at Alesia wasn't one clean clash. It was a sequence of moments where the difference between survival and collapse was measured in minutes, in stamina, in whether a single section of wall held long enough. So picture it. Night before the main assault, the camps allowed in that exhausted way. Not celebration, not fear. More like men making noise, because silence gives the mind room to imagine tomorrow. Roman engineers check stakes and pits one last time. Officers walk the lines, soldiers sharpen blades until the sound becomes soothing. Inside Alesia, the city is quiet in a different way. Hunger quiet. The kind of quiet where people don't waste breath on anything that isn't necessary. Then the horns. Outside first, a low wave of sound rolling across the hills. Then answering signals, closer, sharper. The relief army is moving. On the Roman outer wall, watchtowers spot the first mass. Not a trickle, not skirmishers. A surge. Thousands of men spreading out, searching for the weakest place. The Gauls have learned the shape of the Roman defenses over days of probing. Now they choose the point that looks most vulnerable. A gentler slope. A section where the ditch seems shallower. Where the ground offers a little mercy. That's where they hit. You're a Roman on that wall. You hear it before you see it. The roar of feet, the rattling of shields, the sound of a crowd becoming an attack. You smell sweat and dust even from distance. Then they emerge into view like a living carpet. Banners, spears, men packed tight because they believe mass is what breaks walls. The first wave hits the obstacle field and immediately pays the entrance fee. Feet catch on hidden spikes. Men stumble. Others crash into them. The tight formation becomes a clump. In the clump, panic spreads fast because no one can see the whole picture, only the backs of men in front of them. They keep coming anyway. They throw bundles of brush and dirt into ditches to make crossings. They shove bodies forward to fill gaps. They set ladders. They throw hooks. At the same time, inside Alesia, the horns sound again. Vercingetorix launches his sortie. The inner wall is attacked from within. Roman soldiers on the inner line hear shouting behind them while they're already bracing for shouting in front of them. That's the nightmare of Alesia, the sense that the world is pressing from both sides and your body is the last thing holding it apart. For the next stretch of time, everything becomes simultaneous. On the outer wall, the Gauls surge. On the inner wall, the Gauls surge. And the Romans, between two rings, become a nervous system trying not to snap. This is where people imagine Caesar commanding like a chess player. But real command looks uglier. Its runners sprinting with orders. Its officers screaming until their voices crack. Its centurions dragging men back into line by the collar. It's someone dying with a message in their hand that never gets delivered. It's a commander making decisions without knowing what's happening on the opposite wall, because there isn't time to know. The outer assault intensifies. Ladders go up. Roman soldiers push them off. Men fall. Others climb over bodies because the crowd behind them has no patience for fear. The ditch fills with broken wood and injured men. The pits, those hidden holes, do their silent work. A runner steps wrong. and disappears. A man behind him steps into the same hole because he didn't see the first one fall. Rome's fortifications are not killing with glory. They are killing with inconvenience. They are turning courage into slow motion. Meanwhile, the inner assault is relentless. Alesia's defenders are starving, and starvation makes you brave in a way that has no exit strategy. They push harder because if they don't break the inner wall, they'll die inside their own fortress anyway. They come with ladders, with hooks, with stones. Roman soldiers hold. They fight at close range, short blades, pushing shields, the kind of fighting where you can smell the other man's breath. Now the critical detail: the Gauls don't need to win everywhere. They need to break one sector, one seam, at the same time, from both sides. Create a hole, pour through, split the Romans in half. Once the Romans are split, the fortification becomes a prison for the Romans instead of a cage for the Gauls. That's the goal, and in one sector, one unlucky stretch of Roman outer wall, the pressure starts to bend. Not collapse, bend. A ditch gets partially filled. A section of palisade gets damaged. A tower becomes a focal point where ladders keep appearing no matter how many get pushed down. Men are exhausted. Arms are heavy. The rhythm of defense, the clean routine, starts to fray. This is the point in the movie where the hero rides in with a speech. In reality, Caesar does something both less dramatic and more dangerous. He goes there. He moves to the sector that's bending. Not because he wants glory, because if that section collapses, everything collapses. And Caesar understands something that sounds cynical but is true. Soldiers defend better when they believe they're being watched by someone who can reward them and punish them. It's not romantic. It's human. Caesar makes sure they see him. He appears in the line. He points. He speaks to officers. He becomes a physical object the men can anchor their fear to. Now the battle reaches its tightest point. The outer wall sector is bending. The relief army is pushing. The inner wall is still under assault. Roman reserves are limited. Every man committed to the outer wall is a man not available for the inner wall. Every man sent inward weakens the outer wall. This is where the fight becomes a matter of minutes. Because the Gauls can't sustain this pressure forever. Attacking fortifications drains you in a special way. It steals energy before you even fight. You spend strength climbing, crossing, lifting, pushing through obstacles designed to waste your body. But if you stop, the whole plan fails. The inside and outside attacks lose synchronization. The window closes. So the Gauls press harder. They send another wave. The wave reaches the ditch. Men shove into it. They throw brush. They throw bodies. They try to make a bridge out of desperation. Ladders go up again. A Roman soldier stabs downward, hits something soft, yanks back. Another ladder appears. Another. And for a moment, the top of the wall becomes crowded with attackers. This is the moment where a fortification stops being a barrier and becomes a knife fight. A Roman defender can't use the wall as protection if the enemy is already on it. Now it's shields and elbows and short blades. It's pushing someone backward until they fall. It's grabbing a man's belt and pulling him off balance. It's the sound of wood cracking and men screaming and metal clanging so close you feel it in your teeth. On the inner wall, a similar thing is happening. Alesia's defenders are pressing. They're trying to time it with the outer pressure. They don't know exactly what's happening outside, only that the horn calls promised salvation. They can hear the distant roar of the relief army. They can feel the energy change. They push, and the Romans are close to being split. This is where Caesar makes his most important decision. He commits his final fresh reserves, picked units, to the bending sector. Not to spread out, not to support, to punch, to stabilize, and then counter-push. Caesar is not trying to win with defense forever. He's trying to hold until the attackers exhaust their best moment, and then he wants to snap back. At the same time, he uses cavalry, mobile force, to strike the relief army where it's vulnerable. On the edges, where the formation is stretched, where men are climbing and crowded, where fear can spread. This is the turning point of the turning point. Because what breaks an assault on fortifications isn't just bodies. It's the realization that your effort is being wasted. The Gauls outside feel the counter-pressure. They feel Roman cavalry hitting their flanks. They feel the fight start to shift from "we are breaking through" to "we are getting stuck." And stuck is deadly when you're attacking. Minutes pass like hours. The attackers keep climbing. The defenders keep pushing them down. The ditch becomes a choke point filled with wounded men and broken ladders. The ground is slick. People fall. People step on them. The momentum of the relief army, its greatest weapon, starts to drain away into friction. And friction is Caesar's design. Now the coalition problem begins to show itself. The relief army is not a single tribe with a single leader. It's a coalition. Coalitions are powerful when they're winning, fragile when they're confused. Different tribes react differently. Some press, others hesitate. Some believe the others are retreating and decide not to die alone. Coordination becomes harder the longer the assault goes without success. Inside Alesia, Vercingetorix is watching. He can't see the whole battlefield. He can only feel the rhythm. He has to decide how long to keep throwing starving men at the inner wall, how long to keep burning the last energy of his people. Because if the relief army breaks through, they're saved. If it fails, every sortie is just accelerating death. He pushes again anyway, because the alternative is surrender. And surrender is the death of the dream he built. Outside, the relief army's assault begins to wobble, not because they lack courage, because their courage is colliding with a machine built to waste it. Men are exhausted from climbing and dragging and filling ditches. Their arms shake, their legs burn, and the Roman defenders, rotating units, holding routine, can replace tired men with less tired men. This is another Roman advantage people underestimate. Rotation. Fortifications allow defenders to shift. Attackers cannot rotate through obstacle fields easily. The men in front are stuck doing the hardest part. So the front line of the assault starts to thin. Men step back, not retreat, just a breath. And that breath is contagious. When one man steps back, the man next to him wonders if it's time. When two men step back, the men behind them feel exposed. When enough men step back, the whole assault starts to lose its forward pressure. Caesar senses it. He does not let it recover. He orders controlled counterattacks, not reckless, not chasing glory into open ground, just enough to turn hesitation into fear, just enough to make the relief force feel that the window is closing. And once the relief force begins to withdraw, the entire plan collapses. Inside Alesia, The defenders can hear it first. The distant roar changes. Horn calls shift. The sound becomes less confident. The city walls hold men who suddenly realize salvation might not happen. Outside, the relief force starts to pull away. At first, it looks like reorganization. Then it becomes obvious. They are withdrawing. Not in perfect order, because once you decide an assault failed, you're no longer moving as a weapon. You're moving as individuals trying to survive. Leaders shout, men run, tribes pull back in clusters. The coalition dissolves the way it formed, decision by decision, fear by fear. Caesar's cavalry harasses the retreat, just enough to make it ugly, just enough to make it feel like a rout rather than a tactical reset. Because Caesar doesn't just want them to leave, he wants them to never come back. Inside Alesia, the moment is devastating. Vercingetorix is left with hunger, walls, and the reality that his gamble failed. Now Alesia is truly alone. The siege clock is done pretending. Grain is gone. Horses are dying. People are weak. Morale is cracked. There is no relief army. There is no second chance. And this is where the story becomes quiet again. Not because peace arrives, because inevitability does. Vercingetorix makes the final move. He surrenders. He does it in a way meant to preserve dignity, because dignity is all he has left. He offers himself, hoping his people will be spared. He turns a military defeat into a symbolic act. The leader takes the burden. The nation survives. Caesar accepts. And that acceptance is not just victory. It's a message to all of Gaul. Unity tried. Unity failed. Rome remains. Now here's the part that matters beyond the drama. Alesia doesn't just end a siege, it ends a dream. Gaul's unified resistance cracks. The rebellion loses its center of gravity. Tribe leaders who were considering defiance start recalculating. It becomes safer to submit than to bet on another miracle. Caesar doesn't just win territory. He wins inevitability. And he carries that inevitability back to Rome. Because while everyone is watching Alesia as a story about barbarians and legions, Caesar is using it as proof that he can do the impossible. A man who can trap two armies at once. A man who can stand between threats and not break. Rome is terrified of one thing more than foreign enemies. A Roman who becomes bigger than the Republic. So, how did Julius Caesar's 50,000 defeat two armies in one battle? He refused to fight the battle they wanted. Vercingetorix wanted open space and shifting war. The relief army wanted a glorious smash. Caesar gave them neither. He gave them geometry. He gave them engineered friction. He gave them a battlefield that punished speed and rewarded control. And once you're fighting in a world Caesar designed, your numbers don't automatically become strength. They become traffic. They become confusion. They become bodies piling into ditches. And if you're looking for the warning, it's this. When you let your enemy decide the shape of your choices, you're already losing. Alesia is proof that bravery isn't always enough, that unity isn't always enough, that sometimes you can do everything right, unite, resist, sacrifice, and still lose because your enemy is fighting a different kind of war. Not a war of courage, a war of control. If stories like this remind you how thin the line is between we can still win and we are trapped, subscribe, because these aren't just battles. They're instructions written in dirt, sweat, and human error. And if you think Alesia is the end of Caesar's story, if you think this victory makes Rome safer, wait until you see what happens when the man who can trap two armies turns his attention back toward the city that made him.